Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning into this special personal message. It is the new moon in Aquarius and the start of the new lunar year, and really the start of a whole new cycle for us all. So it feels absolutely perfect that this is the day that I'm coming to you to share with you some exciting announcements about the evolution of my work, my professional work, and make some announcements about how I'm going to begin showing up and holding sacred space for my community from now and moving forward. So, most of you who are watching this know me. If you don't know me, my name is Charlotte Elea Dovechild. I am a New Earth priestess. I am a spiritual guide, and I hold space for our collective evolution upon this planet. I have been in a 2-year retreat in most regards regarding my professional work and my public presence. I have been in deep spiritual alchemy, emotional alchemy, healing, and going into deeper levels in myself than I ever could have imagined, healing layers of ancestral trauma, past life wounding, karma, childhood wounding, and bringing myself into the fruition of where I am right now, which is really unifying the feminine and the masculine within me and coming into sacred wholeness. And I know that I have so many more places to go on my healing and evolutionary journey, but that journey that I've been on for 2 years, that really, I mean, I've been on a healing journey for a very long time, but the deepening of that journey, which began at the winter solstice of 2020, I would say that's when I felt really called to fully step myself back from my business and shut a lot down. And to this moment of coming back and giving birth to a whole new spiritual framework. And that's what I want to talk about next. So I want to divide this into 3 parts. Three, how can I say this? 3 expressions of my new work. So the first I'm calling the 13 rays. I also sometimes call it the 13 rays of the rainbow serpent or the 13 rays of the rainbow dragon. If you have a vote on that later on, please let me know, serpent or dragon. And then we have the evolutionary androgyne. And then we have personal mythos transformation. So let's start by talking about the 13 rays. So the 13 rays is a cyclical framework, or you could call it a container that works with a different frequency for each moon of the year. And so as we move through the wheel of the year, we are allowing these frequencies to help us come into greater wholeness and to awaken our divinity. And so now this type of framework is pretty common, right? Like you've probably seen these types of cyclical frameworks shared by a lot of different people, a lot of different temples in different ways. And the way that the 13 rays of the rainbow serpent is unique is that we work with 3 archetypes for each moon under each frequency. So these archetypes include a divine masculine, a divine feminine, and a shadow. So those are the 3. So an archetype is basically a collective or universal form of energy. It can take on a symbolic essence within our minds, right? But it actually is energy. And so we want to think of an archetype not just as something that lives up here intellectually, but also something that exists within our emotional bodies, our physical bodies, and in our thought bodies. So that's when an archetype is. We all have connection to these archetypes through the collective consciousness and the collective unconsciousness, and they show up for us in unique ways as well, depending on our own personal history and ancestral history. So as an example of this, you see that I'm wearing this maroon top today. So with this moon, new moon in Aquarius, we are actually moving into the maroon ray of sacred space. And that is why the topic of this video is so perfect for this moon. And so under this maroon ray of sacred space, we have the divine feminine archetype of the space holder. We have the divine masculine archetype of the guardian. And we have the shadow archetype of the outcast. So the shadow archetypes are what we are moving into wholeness and bringing into sacred inclusion within our being in order to heal them and transmute their energy. And we do that by learning to embody the divine archetypes. So the divine feminine, the divine masculine archetypes. So as we hold sacred space for our own evolution, and as we hold the boundaries of that through the guardian archetype as well, we then allow for the rejected and outcasted aspects of us to come into wholeness. So that's a little bit about how the system works, a very brief overview of all the 13 rays. So I'm going to just get out my notes so I don't stumble over my words. So here's a snapshot of the 13 rays of the rainbow serpent. So we have the maroon ray of sacred space, and then we have the ruby ray of grace, the carnelian ray of freedom, the golden ray of sovereignty, the citrine ray of ecstasy, the pink ray of love, the emerald ray of harmony, the turquoise ray of justice, the sapphire ray of beauty, the indigo ray of mystery, the violet ray of transformation, the black ray of wisdom, and finally the silver ray of devotion. Okay, so now let's move into the second aspect of this work, which is called the evolutionary androgyne. The evolutionary androgyne. And really, this takes the cyclical framework of the 13 rays. It works with that and takes it big leap further. So the evolutionary androgyne is a transformational process through the 13 rays, where we are actively engaged in rebirthing ourselves spiritually into wholeness, into the union of our own divine feminine and masculine, the unity of our humanity with our spirit and our soul. This process was birthed through my own personal alchemy. And I'd like to say that that my personal alchemy allowed this to be birthed through me, but this is not mine, right? This is creator, great creator moving through me. Okay, so here is a little bit about how this works. The first step is in embodying the divine feminine. So we rise the divine feminine out from hiding. She's been in hiding for many millennia, and many of us who are on the path of healing with the divine feminine are bringing her, rising her up and bringing her back into our consciousness, back into embodiment. Okay, so that is really the first step, is we actively work with those divine feminine archetypes. Then what we do is we have created a divine container for ourselves to invite the shadow archetypes back into wholeness. So we hold a container of self-love and self-compassion for those shadows to be integrated within us. And through love, then the shadow frequency is transmuted, and we end up releasing the aspects of the shadow that we are no longer needed, right? So through that release process, as we were releasing the shadow frequency of what no longer serves us, we are releasing the toxic masculine, kind of like shell that we've all been taught to wear. So that is part of the release process that happens. And as after we release, we are then left with a wonderful space of raw energy, because we know that no energy ever dies. Energy simply transforms. So through this raw energy that we now have, this beautiful space within us to work with, we then begin to create and rebirth the divine masculine. So then our feminine and our divine masculine come into sacred union, right? And so we get to experience that ecstatic state of wholeness that happens. For each of us, we experience something different when that happens. So we sometimes experience great aliveness. Sometimes we experience great peace, great clarity. Yeah, it gets to manifest in a lot of different ways, and it's always really wonderful. My dog, I can hear my dog just to my right snoring over there. I don't know if you can hear her. The next piece and the final piece of this is that unity within us then creates third forms. So this is from this place of wholeness, we become sacred creators of the new earth. And that then leads us through a whole new evolutionary cycle. And so we almost like start the process all over again. So yeah, so that's a snapshot of the first two major aspects of what I am about to birth into the world, or I am right now. And before I move forward and share the third aspect, I thought that I should share a little backstory, right? A little bit of context about where this is all coming from, even though I've shared that in a very general way so far. So as I mentioned, for the last few years, several years now, I've been on a healing path with the divine feminine. And I have worked deeply with the temples of 13 Moons, Priestess Presence, Priestess Rising, and Rosa Mystica. And within these temples, I was really blessed to be part of many deep healing sister circles and formed really intimate relationships with other women, and was part of alchemical containers for my own evolution, healing, and growth. And what's interesting about this is that those sisters who I ended up forming the most intimate relationships with we were not just healing with the divine feminine, we were healing with the divine masculine as well. And we didn't have a blueprint for this. Nobody was teaching us this. We were literally feeling it out and learning about what the divine masculine is within us as we went, because we had many archetypes for the divine feminine to work with, but none for the divine masculine. So as I went deeper into this divine feminine path, it's like I went deeper into both the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And that's when I really began to discover that this was my path. This was my spiritual path, was in the unity of them both, in the balancing of them both. And that this was a path not only for me to walk myself continually throughout this life, but also a path for me to lead as well. Some of you probably know I work with dragons very intimately as my spiritual guide and advisors. And they have been telling me for many years, for several years now, that they they are encouraging me to queer my spiritual work in the world just as much as I queer my personal life and my personal relationships. And I believe this actually began 25 years ago. So in college, I was a cultural anthropology major. And in one of my senior level classes with my academic advisor, I took this class, and it was a class all around gender and culture and all of that. And I wrote this paper that wasn't really a paper. It was a mythical story about this mythical land and this mythical race of beings that didn't have gender at all. And I explored the like in all these different ways what it would mean to have a society, a whole species of beings where that wasn't part of the cultural conditioning. And I find that so fascinating. And I've come back to that many times as this work has begun to come into fruition within me, because I too believe that gender is a cultural construct, that we are each a balance of divine feminine and divine masculine energies. I do believe that as a species, we are evolving from gender and sex, male, female, right? We are evolving from a state where this was divided. So femininity belonged to women, females, and masculinity belonged to men, males. And through the trauma of the feminine being so violated and repressed over the last 2,000 years, and thus women being violated and repressed, the earth being violated, repressed, but also the feminine within men being violated and repressed. As we heal that great wound within us, we don't come out the same. We don't come out the same. Gender is transforming. We then get to actually own the fact that we are a balance of feminine and masculinity, no matter what we choose to identify: male, female, non-binary, trans. So that is one of the foundational aspects of where I'm coming from as I share this work in the world. Okay, so finally, let's go into the final piece: personal mythos. Personal mythos transformation. And to begin sharing this, I want to share a little bit of a little more backstory, actually. And it's all around the shadow archetypes. So way back, I don't know, when was it? 10 years ago, I think it was, when I seriously began a spiritual healing journey. And I started offering readings for clients. I brought forward the skills that I had learned as a psychotherapist, right? And the training that I had received as a depth-oriented psychotherapist, and immediately began doing shadow work on myself and my clients. And based on the training I had, but also on an innate ability that I had of seeing what was hidden beneath the consciousness of myself and my clients. And this has really been what has led my own healing work for myself and for clients the past 10 years. And as I worked with clients and the shadow, what I began to see were that there were these patterns that were emerging and these like universal stories and narratives that took on almost like a mythic quality that felt really timeless and felt like they outdated my client and myself and came from like a different place. And I began to see how these stories were deeply embedded within our ancestry, within our past lives, and then played out throughout our lives since our childhood. And also how they almost like influenced and created our identities. They influence the choices we make every day, our belief systems. They influence our moods and the relationships we create. They form blueprints for all of that, right? So some examples of these shadow archetypes are, I've already talked about one, the outcast, and then like the martyr and the prisoner, the whore, right? So these are some of these powerful, very wounding, and sometimes traumatizing narratives that when we do not have awareness of them, they continue to wound us. They continue to keep us in disempowered places. And sometimes they can even recreate trauma within our lives. So we want to bring these shadow stories and narratives into awareness, right? So these stories that we tell ourselves that sort of run our lives from both conscious and unconscious places is our personal mythos. And our personal mythos contains the sort of shadow stories and archetypes, but also includes some empowering ones. And so the shadow piece is only part of it. And I believe there is so much potential to be able to take these stories that are in fact disempowering us and release them through ceremony, through emotional healing work, through sacred space and love and elemental alchemy and other healing practices. And we use this framework of the 13 rays and the evolutionary androgyne to do that. We get to then create new empowering stories to begin to operate from, to begin to lead the direction of our lives, the choices we make, our belief systems, our mood, a blueprint for our relationships. We are all unique. And so we can use the archetypes as a place to start and then allow our own inner dream time, our soul to begin speaking to us and flush out and fill in and know what really, like, who is the hero and the heroine of our lives. And so this is an aspect I'm also quite passionate about in bringing forth this work in, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. Maybe workshops, maybe retreats. For now, as now that I've shared all three aspects of this work, so I wanted to share a little bit about what forms this work is going to be taking. At the new moon each month, I am going to offer a wisdom video, which is going to offer tools and practices in theme with that moon's frequency, and is going to be in tune with the divine archetypes of that month. So for example, next month, I'm going to be offering a video all around healing energetically and emotionally in 2023, because the ruby ray is the archetype of the healer. So, so that's an example of that. So that's going to come out every new moon. Now, I used to do, for the past few months, I've been doing 2 forecast videos each moon, and that is going to be shifting to just doing 1 forecast video at the full moon, where then we'll look at the cross currents of energies that are moving for us. And I use tarot cards as well as intuitive channeling to relay a message for us from Mother Earth. So that message is going to be for the next several weeks. Really, we can understand that message to be continually gifting to us over the next few weeks. So the third piece, though, that I'm really excited to share with you is a podcast I am starting called The Evolutionary Androgyne. And in this podcast, I am going to be exploring and retelling different myths throughout time from around the globe that really explore our evolutionary potential of coming into balance between feminine and masculine. And we're going to be then talking about those myths and digging for the gems and the jewels of what really we can take away for that, for our own personal healing and evolutionary journeys. So for example, this next episode that should be coming out hopefully in about a week or so is called In Search of the Lost Feminine, where we explore Inanna's descent to the underworld myth, as well as the stories of the Well Maidens. So I feel at this point that this project is such a passion project, and I have been stirring this around in my energy system and mind and body for like a year and a half. I mean, it's been a really long time as this has fully come into fruition for me. Okay, so that's what's coming up for now. I am making this announcement at really like the top of the year. I'm just coming out with this. You watching this video, you're the first to hear about this. So right now, I'm bringing this into the world. It's just me. My dream is for this to continue to evolve and for it to be co-created by those of you who really resonate with this work, with this framework, and are like, yes, you're speaking my soul. You've come along with it. You've experienced the alchemy within the containers, and this begins to become your work in the world as well. That is the dream that I hold. But at this point, I don't even have any like graphics or web pages or this is just me and the microphone, really. So I also envision within the coming year to be holding sacred spaces, to be holding containers where we can really work these energies in intimate group settings or even one-on-one. I haven't quite landed on how that's going to evolve yet. However, I will be offering this work in person in Central California coast coming up very soon. I want to really acknowledge the temples and the containers that I both participated in and held that allowed this work to come into fruition. And I have such deep gratitude for the sisters who have been on this journey with me, who have held personal witness to my alchemy over and over again, and whose personal alchemy I have been able to bear witness to over and over again. And I held such gratitude for the mentorship clients over the years that allowed me to hold space for their healing, for their alchemy over the years. Really, I would never be able to come into this place where I stand with you right now, sit with you, I guess I'm sitting, without the incredible support that has guided me along this journey. And that also includes those in the invisible realm, the dragons, the Great Mother in all her form, all my lighted and well ancestors, the mothers from my lineage that have held this incredible container for me. And I cannot offer, I'm going to start getting very teary, a little bit teary here. I can't, I almost am lost for words when I try to express the gratitude for my chosen family, for Barsha, for my two fur babies, Chloe and Winnie, who have held such an incredible sanctuary with me at my home, my new home, where I'm broadcasting from right now in Paso Robles, and the land and the earth here that has welcomed us all home, where we have set down deep, deep roots into the earth here. And none of this would have come into fruition without the presence, knowing in my body, in my blood, in my bones, and unifying with the goddess of the land here. None of this would have come into fruition. She has been part of this alchemy. She is part of the self-expression of it right here, right now. So that is, I think, all I want to share with you today. I might have stumbled over my words a little bit in excitement or nervousness as I find the right words to express all of this to you, all of my new passion, all of this purpose coming into fruition. Thank you for bearing witness today. And I am humbled to be able to serve yet again, to come back into the world with an open heart, with a full heart spilling over in offering and holding the spaces that I can and that I am allowed to do and that I am invited into. And I would be overjoyed if you felt inspired in any way to come along. All right. Mwah. My heart to yours. I almost ended this video without offering a prompt, which I so want to do. I would love to hear from you, to get feedback from you. What is landing for you? What are you excited about? What resonates? If something is sparking within you from all that I have shared, I would love for you to leave a comment below. All right, thank you. Bye for now.